You guys are watching the Cam Rogers Show presented by BetDSI. I am Cam Rogers. Hit me up on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. Hit me with your questions as well. I'll be tracking what you guys ask here on YouTube Live as well as Facebook Live. And if you're watching on YouTube on demand, hit me up on Twitter for those questions. All right, so I've got my top 10 NFL teams here as we enter week 2 of the season. So without any further ado, let's get to number 10 here on the list. And because I am very authentic and transparent with you guys, I will say not the most confident in the back end of this top 10 here, particularly due to injuries. So at number 10, the Atlanta Falcons, they lost to the Philadelphia Eagles on that Thursday night opener. Speaking of injuries, the Falcons took a couple of hits here. Deion Jones, linebacker, and Canu Neal, the safety there, really good player, both done for the year. So you have injuries on the defensive side for the Falcons. You have red zone issues on the offensive side for Atlanta. Look, the pressure is all on Matt Ryan to get back to his 2016 MVP form. At this point, it's the only chance for the Atlanta Falcons to make some sort of noise here because you're losing a couple of key defenders on that side. Now the defense is going to be exposed the rest of the way. I do like Desmond Trufant. I think their pass rush is good enough with Grady Jarrett and company. But for the Atlanta Falcons here, you look at the stats against the Philadelphia Eagles, 21 of 43, 251 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 pick, nothing inspiring. So it's going to be on these guys here. Ryan, Julio Jones, Grady Jarrett, Desmond Trufant. I like a lot at corner. Devontae Freeman at running back as well. These are your key contributors here this season for the Atlanta Falcons. Look, overall, still a balanced, solid roster. And I think Atlanta can make some noise this year. I projected them to make a wild card berth happen. I don't think they win the South. I think the Saints win the South. Actually win the Super Bowl, by the way. But they could drop too, because if injuries continue to pile up and that adversity continues to hit them and they can't bounce back from it, they may have to drip off to maybe 13, 14, 15. We shall see. Somebody asking about Calvin Ridley. That's a great question. Where was he in week 1? We need to see more of him coming up in the coming games for the Atlanta Falcons. So Atlanta at number 10 there on my list. By the way, we'll be flashing BetDSI Super Bowl 53 odds. So the Falcons have plus 2,000 odds to capture the Lombardi Trophy this season in Atlanta, by the way. So we'll see if Atlanta can get a home Super Bowl for the first time ever. All right, let's go to number 9 here on the list. We've got the Carolina Panthers. And BetDSI odds here of plus 3,500. So longer odds than the Atlanta Falcons. They did win against the Dallas Cowboys, but it was fairly ugly. And I have them at 9 and maybe not higher because we've got some injuries on the offensive line to talk about. Matt Khalil, of course, at left tackle. And then perhaps Darrell Williams, the right tackle as well. So when you have an offensive line that is constantly shuffling and in flux, that's not good news for any quarterback out there. The biggest component to an offensive line is chemistry, and I guess you could say cohesion. And when injuries happen and players get shuffled in and shuffled out, it's harder to have that cohesion, harder to have that chemistry. So I have real concerns about the front 5 there for Carolina, but the reality is Cam Newton, Christian McCaffrey, K'Wan Short, these guys are legit players, and they can help Carolina continue to win ugly throughout the regular season here. So Williams at right tackle, big-time concern. How about Greg Olsen as well at tight end? Refractured his foot, dealt with a foot injury last year as well. He's going to be reevaluated on a monthly basis, according to the Carolina Panthers. I'll have more information about Greg Olsen towards the end of the program here. But obviously, not good for the Carolina Panthers. A great veteran tight end there, and now the likes of DJ Moore and Funchess and these cast of characters on the outside are going to have to step up for Cam Newton and company. But C.J. Anderson, Christian McCaffrey, those guys should have a lot of pressure on them as well to perform on that offensive side there. So who will win the NFC South? It's a legit question right now because the Panthers won ugly against the Dallas Cowboys. The Falcons lost against the Philadelphia Eagles. It was a tight game. And the Saints got outdueled by Ryan Fitzpatrick at home. So at this point, you got to wonder who's winning the South. I'm going to stick with the Saints because I don't flip-flop after 1 week of the regular season. All right, so we got the Panthers there at number 9. Let's go to number 8. How about this team? I'll eat crow for now about the Kansas City Chiefs because they deserve to be inside the top 10 after that performance against a Chargers team that was a sexy playoff pick heading into this year. BetDSI odds of plus 2,000 to win Super Bowl 53 showed a lot of firepower in week 1, folks. Quite an offensive performance for Tyreek Hill. Targeted by Mahomes 8 times, made 7 catches for 169 yards and a couple of touchdowns to his credit. Mahomes went for 256 yards on just 15 throws. That's impressive. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions for the young quarterback. But week 1 for Kansas City against the Chargers was the Tyreek Hill show. 7 receptions, as you see, almost 200 yards. How about the yards per reception, though? 24.1. That's what Tyreek Hill can do. He's electrifying. He's a spark plug. He can make those crazy plays. The problem is, I don't know if that is sustainable. And are we going to see that kind of stat line week in and week out from Tyreek Hill? Probably not. At the same time, though, we're not going to see the really bad stat line that we saw from Travis Kelce at the tight end position. He wasn't very good. He was pretty absent, to be honest with you. Not that he was needed, per se, but just keep that in mind. We'll see more of Kelce going forward. Still have my concerns about that secondary for Kansas City. Steven Nelson, Ron Parker, Eric Murray. Still some question marks there. But to Patrick Mahomes, is he a franchise quarterback? Are you guys buying in to Mahomes? Type away, A for yes, B for no. Let me know what you guys think about old Pat. I will say I was a little skeptical about him coming into this season. I said, all right, I need to hear more about Mahomes and see more about Mahomes before I make any drastic conclusions. And from what I saw in week 1, it was impressive, but I'm not ready to say he's a franchise quarterback yet. More data is needed on Patrick Mahomes. All right, so the Chiefs are there at number 8. We'll get to 7. But first, this is the Cam Rogers Show presented by BetDSI. Go to chatsports.com/bet. Use my promo code, got it just for you guys, CAM120, for that 120% deposit bonus. Play now. Stop being a talker. Be a player on BetDSI. All right, we got the Chiefs there at number 8. Let's go to your eventual Super Bowl 53 champions in Atlanta, the New Orleans Saints. Oh, my God, that was ugly. They're now at 7 in my rankings. Big-time disappointment in week 1, where they got absolutely shredded by the most elite journeyman quarterback out there, maybe outside of Josh McCown, Ryan Fitzpatrick. And by the way, what happened in that secondary for New Orleans? I've been talking them up all offseason. Patrick Robinson, one of the elite slot corners out there, just to ask Pro Football Focus. Marshawn Lattimore, the Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie Defensive Player of the Year. And Ken Crawley, who can hold his own at cornerback, I should say, and he got burned. So I don't know what happened with the Saints on the defensive side. Breeze did all he possibly could on the offensive side. But, boy, that defense has to play a lot better this week if, they want to remain inside the top 10, to be honest with you. Absolute disappointment in week 1 against those Bucs. And let me say this. That game is proof that anything can happen any given Sunday. Anything. So maybe the Saints in that week 1 disappointment was just a fluke, and they really are the elite team that I think they are. We'll see. We got some big-time matchups for the Saints coming up in the regular season. So they are at number 7 here on my list. Let's go to number 6. We have the Green Bay Packers. Big-time jump in my rankings. BetDSI Super Bowl 53 odds of plus 1,200. Obviously, this is highly predicated on the health of their franchise quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. If he is not good to go for week 2, week 3, week 4, whatever, look out, because the Packers are not good with Deshaun Kaiser at quarterback. You guys saw that on Sunday Night Football. So for Green Bay, it's about Aaron, and more Aaron. And for now, he is very much up in the air to play in week 2 against the Minnesota Vikings, a team that I think will be the #1 seed in the NFC. This is an ultimate important game for Green Bay. So for Rodgers, for Jimmy Graham, Tramon Williams there at cornerback, he's a good player. These guys are some of the core pieces to that Packers team. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is #1 on the list. You can look at Devontae Adams, Clay Matthews as well, Mike Daniels on that defensive side. I like Clark on that interior as well. I want to see more from that secondary, though. I want to see plays made in that back end from Alexander. Maybe Jackson see some repetitions, the rookie, physical cornerback. Big-time matchup this week against Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, Kyle Rudolph. Those guys are playmakers on the offensive side. So a lot of pressure here on Green Bay, A, to perform in that secondary, and B, make sure Aaron Rodgers is good to go. So Green Bay is at #6. Don't feel great about that ranking, to be honest with you. But let's get to the top 5 here. At #5, the Jacksonville Jaguars. We know who the Jacksonville Jaguars are. They win games, and usually the pictures aren't all that great. No pictures on the scorecard, as they say in the game of golf. If you get a par and it looked a lot worse than what the score indicated, kind of can be said about the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was ugly against the New York Giants in week 1, but they still got the dub. They have a pass rush. They have a secondary. They have an offensive line that is better this season, and hopefully a healthy Leonard Fournette. So all that put together, the Jaguars are a top 5 team. If they can continue to get after the quarterback with the pieces that they have, Malik Jackson and Yannick Ngakoue and Marcel Darius has been really instrumental in terms of the run game and all these pieces here. And, of course, Jalen Ramsey, as you see on your screen, and A.J. Boye in the secondary. The Jags will be just fine. Now, perhaps a preview of the AFC Championship game this week, Jaguars, Patriots, late window on CBS, the national game. It's going to be fun to watch there and see how the Jaguars perform. Maybe they get their revenge at home this time. And I'll be honest with you guys, the Jaguars crowd gets pretty darn loud. I'm pretty impressed with how much energy is in on this franchise these days. So it's not going to be easy for New England on the road. All right, so the Jaguars are at #5. Speaking of those Patriots, they are here in my #4 slot. They beat the Houston Texans in their seemingly yearly Texans matchup. Still the BetDSI favorites to win Super Bowl 53 at +600 odds. Didn't look great last week against the Houston Texans, at least on the offensive side. Tom Brady wasn't elite by any means. I still have my concerns about the wide receiver position. Even though they signed Benny Fowler and Corey Coleman, that does not inspire a lot of confidence for me, for New England, to make a lot of plays on the outside. I mean, of course, Hogan is a good player, and eventually they'll get Julian Edelman back, but can it always be the Rob Gronkowski show on the offensive side? Obviously, it can't, especially when you play a good team like Jacksonville. They might put Jalen Ramsey on Gronkowski. And I guess one of the bulletin board material pieces out there, if you will, about Gronk is that Jalen Ramsey said, all you got to do is put a cornerback on Gronk, and you'll stop him. So Brady, Hogan, of course, Trent Brown, your left tackle there, who will be taking on some pretty darn good pass rushers from Jacksonville, are some key players to watch out for. But for New England, they are the class of the AFC. Now, in terms of this week, I actually think the Jaguars get it done. I think the Jaguars win against New England. I'm typing my J in the comments section, but go ahead, let me know what you guys think. P for Patriots, J for Jacksonville Jaguars. Let me know what you think. It's a tough matchup to predict, but this kind of seems like a classic New England Patriots early season loss that may not matter once the season is all over and all of that stuff. So that's why I'm leaning on the Jaguars to actually get that victory there is because, well, A, the Jaguars are at home. They got the pass rush to disrupt Brady. And also the fact that, well, it could be a loss for New England early on, somewhat usually how it goes with the Patriots. Couple early season losses, then they really fire off. All right, so let's go to number 3. So the all-NFC theme the rest of the way. The Minnesota Vikings got their victory, told you so, against the San Francisco 49ers. And oh, by the way, my picks last week were really bad, so I don't have much to celebrate about. But this game I did get right about Minnesota taking down San Francisco. 49ers fan, I was clapping back at you on Twitter, my man, because, hey, I told you that it was going to happen. Not saying the 49ers are a bad team, though. But this Minnesota Vikings defense is just the real deal. And Kirk Cousins, of course, is going to be a fine player for this team as well, as long as his offensive weapons continue to stay healthy. Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook is the real deal at running back, coming back from that injury, of course. It's all there for Minnesota. Linval Joseph, the nose tackle. Sheldon Richardson is coming off a really good game. He was highly graded on Pro Football Focus. Harrison Smith picked off Garoppolo. Xavier Rhodes, one of the elite cornerbacks out there. And Stephon Diggs had a touchdown reception last week against San Francisco. So it's Kirk, it's Stephon, it's Linval Joseph. I mean, you can point to so many of these guys, all potential Pro Bowlers this season. The Vikings, maybe outside of the Rams, may lead the NFL in Pro Bowlers from a team perspective. So I really love this team a lot. I think they get that number 1 overall seed. I don't think they go to the Super Bowl because I think the Saints do, but the Vikings will very much be in the running. All right, folks, clothing here on the Cam Rogers Show is brought to you by Mizzen and Main. I am wearing a Mizzen and Main shirt right now, just like Phil Mickelson, Troy Aikman, the list goes on. A lot of big-time players out there are wearing these shirts, so go ahead and get one for yourself at comfortable.af. That is indeed the website to get it done. Shout out to Mizzen for the clothing. All right, let's go to number 2 here on the list. We've got the Los Angeles Rams. Boy, what a second-half performance against the Oakland Raiders on Monday Night Football. They looked kind of sluggish in the early going against the Raiders, and then they really picked it up. I look at this roster, and I'm like, Pro Bowler here, Pro Bowler there, Pro Bowler over there. It's just like you point to the offensive line, it's solid. They got Andrew Whitworth at left tackle. He's a Pro Bowler. You got Todd Gurley at running back, the Offensive Player of the Year. Jared Goff at quarterback, who looked pretty solid on that Monday night game. And Ndamukong Suh and Aaron Donald and Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters. I mean, you tell me how you beat this Rams team. Now, of course, the Rams aren't going to go 16-0 or anything like that. It's really hard to do that in the NFL. But 14-2, 13-3, very much in the realm of possibility. Will they win the Super Bowl, though? Let me know in comments. A for yes, B for no. Aaron Donald, he was a guy to watch out for on Monday night because he got paid, and sometimes players go 90% after they cash out, if you will, or sometimes they're not as good. He was just as good as 2017. So Aaron Donald, true disruptor, of course. We know that. Just imagine if the Rams actually got Khalil Mack. Oh, my God. There'd be no reason to watch football this year. Rams are legit, folks. Type away. They're at number 2 on the list. And then finally, the defending Super Bowl champions fended off the Super Bowl hangover, fended off the adversity of not having Carson Wentz at the quarterback position, and beat a legit playoff team in the Atlanta Falcons at home. Elite front 7, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham. Eventually, they'll get Timmy Jernigan back as well. Michael Bennett is there, new addition to that team. You got a secondary that did good enough. I mean, yeah, Julio Jones went wild. That's going to happen. Julio Jones is just a situation where you got to somewhat contain him, and if he runs wild and then you see the Falcons struggle elsewhere, that's all you need, because Steve Sarkisian is still the offensive coordinator and Matt Ryan is still struggling in the red zone. So for Philadelphia here, they will remain at number 1, I'll tell you right here, right now, until they lose. Because they're coming off a Super Bowl win. They're coming off a victory in Week 1. Why would I put them anywhere else? It just would not make much sense. By the way, offensive line now healthy, looks really good with Jason Peters there at left tackle. So here you go, my top 10 teams as we enter the week 2 of the regular season here. Eagles at 1, Rams at 2, Vikings at 3. We've got the Patriots at 4. The Jaguars check in at number 5. Packers at 6. Saints at 7 there. Chiefs check in at 8, new addition to my top 10. Panthers there at 9. Falcons at 10. Some obvious snubs, I guess you could say. Well, yeah, the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't there. They tied against the Cleveland Browns. I'm not putting them inside my top 10. And people are still on the Chargers despite the loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm not putting them in there. I actually did see the Baltimore Ravens inside the top 10 on one edition of the Power Rankings out there on the interwebs. Not ready to put Baltimore inside the top 10 yet, despite that big-time victory against Buffalo.